Okay, guys, welcome to the last part of graphing square root functions. This is lesson number 3. Again, just trying to chunk them into smaller pieces so they're a little more digestible and you don't have to see my dumb face and hear my voice for too long of a stretch. You can kind of take a breather in between. Okay, so lesson 1, we got the parent function of a square root graph. Okay, square root function. Parent function started at 0, 0, went up like that, and it's basically half of a sideways parabola. Great. Lesson number 2, we made it a little bit harder, made it a little more complex here, and we saw that it's really not that much harder. It just basically has a different x and y intercept, and we did that by finding the x and y intercept here. We graphed the x and y intercept, and this point is the vertex of that parabola. So if you were to imagine the entire sideways parabola, if you were to continue here, that's the vertex, and the vertex was from, it's the very same thing as the vertex form of a parabola. Remember, our h and our k is basically our vertex. Over here we got, guess what? H and k, that's our vertex. Just remember, h is a little tricky. If you see a positive number there, it's actually negative. If you were to see a -4 there, x -4, that would actually be +4. So just remember that h, that first number is a little bit tricky, but students usually get caught up with that. -4, -1, boom. I want to take this a step further. I want to talk now. I'm going to erase some of this. I want to talk now about what else we need to know about this. What you're going to be asked, and let me just kind of take a minute to address this too. What I'm showing you is what you're going to need to know. Everything you're going to need to know for your quizzes, your Schoology quizzes, your homework, your practice tests, whatever it is that you're going to see. This is the meat of it. Not to say that other stuff that you see on other online resources is not useful. It absolutely is. It's probably more useful, more thorough than I can be. But this is just the stuff that I know you're going to see for a fact. Okay, so that other knowledge is very useful too. I'm just trying to cut to the chase here. And I know I've been blabbering on for a long time. All right, what I want to know, the D for domain, R for range. I want to know the domain and the range. And in order to illustrate domain and range, I could just use this. That's fine. So if you don't remember, domain is all the x values. So all the x values, let's think about that for a second. All the x values, this is the x-axis. These are all the x values. X values go from left to right. Left to right. Okay? So I'm going to use this pen, okay? And I'm going to do this. So if you see, it's touching. There's an x value here, and here, and here, and here, and here, here. There's a bunch of x values here. However, is there an x value here? There is not, because look at it. My sideways parabola stops over here. So there's no x value here or here. So I can't just say all x values or all real numbers. I can't do that. Specifically, the left to right stops going left here, which is at what x value? That's going to be -1, -2, -3, -4. So the domain starts at -4, but it includes -4. So you need to put a bracket. Okay? Bracket is if we're including that number. So it includes -4, we're putting a bracket. Now let's see this. So it starts at -4 from the left. How far right does it go? Let's think about that. It's going. So it keeps on going forever to the right. How do we say that? Forever to the right is going to be positive infinity. If it was negative, I'd just put a negative. It's positive, I could just leave it like that. Now, for infinity and positive infinity, you are going to put parentheses. Okay, let's move on to the range. Okay, the range, instead of being all the x values, it is all the y values. And instead of going left to right, we are now going down and up and down and up. Okay, so let's think about this. Let's think about how far down I can go on. How far down? Oh, wait a minute, I can't go past that. That's it. That's how far down I can go, because the graph doesn't exist here. The graph doesn't go below this point. So how far down does it go? Well, let's see. That's at what number at -1? I just said it. On the y value, that is -1. Does it include -1? Absolutely. That is a bracket. Now let's see how far up it goes. Now let's think about this parabola. It's going like this. It's eventually going to get wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. So it's not only going to the right, but it's also going up and up and up, slowly, a little bit slowly, but it's still going to go up and up and up and up and up. How far up? And it's not going to stop. We're going to write that as infinity with a parenthesis. We found our domain and range. Okay, last thing we need to do is to find our inverse. Let me show you how to write that. Okay, so once we got that, I'm going to erase this. Now for inverse, I'm going to erase this graph too. I don't need it right now. Okay, kind of done with it. Just to recap what inverse, essentially how to find the inverse of something. You basically switch the x and the y's and then solve for, you have to solve for y again. All right, so here's what we're going to do. This is where we write it. Inverse of f of x. Okay, so f power negative 1. So here's how we're going to do it. Inverse of f of x. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the place of the x and the y. So I'm going to rewrite this as x. So just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to put y instead of f of x, just so it's a little more clear. Okay, I'm going to switch their places. I'm going to say x equals square root of y plus 4 minus 1. Now I have a job to do. That job is to isolate the y, or solve for y. So let's take a look at this right side. Everything else got to go. So let's move this minus 1 first by doing plus 1. We're going to get x plus 1 equals square root of y plus 4. Great. I'm going to continue it up there. I don't have much space. X plus 1 equals square root of y plus 4. Going back to what we talked about here in the earlier videos. Square root, I want to get rid of that. Remember, I want to solve for y here. That square root got to get out of here. So the inverse of square root would be to square it. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. So what essentially that's going to do to the square and the square root is going to cancel that out. So we're just going to be left with y plus 4 here. All right, but first and foremost, before we can do anything else, so let me just write this out. Y plus 4, because the square and the square root cancel out. I have to do x plus 1 squared. Do not do this. Don't do, oh, that's just x squared plus 1 squared. Yeah, there you go. Boom. No, it's not. Okay? So remember, x plus 1 squared means x plus 1 times itself. X plus 1 times x plus 1. And I'm actually going to do that for you guys real quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. 1 times x is 1x, or just x. 1 times 1 is 1, equals y plus 4. I'm going to combine my like terms. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals y plus 4. And then lastly, I'm going to subtract that 4. And we're almost done. X squared plus 2x minus 3 equals y. And what I'm just going to do at the very end, instead of putting a y there, I'm going to put, well, that's my inverse of f of x. So what we just found here, I'm just going to put it here. We have inverse of f of x is x squared plus 2x minus 3. And we are done there. Okay, that was a lot to digest. However, now you guys can pause the video and you are going to do this on your own. Okay, so just another square root function. X-intercept, remember you got to find that and write it. The coordinate. The y-intercept as well, you got to write the vertex down. Actually, the vertex takes like 2 seconds. It's actually right over there. It's staring at you in the face. So that should be the quickest one of the vertex. X-intercept, y-intercept, you can sketch that graph. Remember, it has to look like a sideways parabola, half of a sideways parabola. Domain and range, and then find the inverse. So everything we've done in the first 3 videos, this is what you need right here. I want you to try that out. We will be available, Algebra 2 teachers will be available for what we're calling office hours, where we can live conference you guys, so we can go over any one of these questions. If you're not sure about anything I went over that you're not sure, please let us know. Thanks.